All right. Shalom, Israel. Shalom, shalom. This is Brother Ezra, and this is my channel, Rise Up Israel. Um, right now, I'm just going to do a quick video. But first and foremost, I would like to call Allah, which means to give all praise to Yahweh, who the world ignorantly calls God. Ba'ashem, which means in the name of the Son, Yahweh Shai, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. So definitely all praise to the Most High. Lord willing, this video can be edifying through the Spirit. But today I'm going to go over Daniel 7. Really, I'm probably going to do two parts in this thing, because it's a very in-depth chapter. And, I don't want to, make this video too long. So I'm probably going to, make two parts to it. The first video is probably just going to be the first explaining the first four beasts um, written in Daniel 7. And then the next video is going to be explaining the fourth beast, and going into that. But without further ado, let's start. Let's get it. Daniel 7:1. It says this: In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matter. So Daniel had a vision pretty much. And after, he had this dream, his vision, he went out and wrote the matters. All right. Verse 2, and it says this: Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision of night by night, and behold, the four winds of heaven strove upon the great sea. All right, let's see. So it says they strove upon the great sea. Let's go to verse 3. And four great beasts came up from the sea, diverse from one another. So there's four beasts that come upon that came up out the sea. All right. Now this isn't a literal sea. Now these seas, they represent other nations. Now these four beasts are four nations that came out of a multitude of other nations, like pretty much nations that came in power. All right. So I'm gonna go down and explain that. Let's go to verse 17 real quick. This is verse 17. All right, and it says this: These great beasts, which are four kings which shall arise out of the earth. So these beasts are actually, these four beasts are four kings, and the way that they explain who these beasts are gives you it tells you pretty much who these beasts, who these kingdoms are, who these kings are. All right, so these four beasts are four kingdoms. All right, and it says it came up from the sea. So what would this sea represent? I just said it represents other nations, meaning just out of the nations, four came up in rulership. All right, so let's go to Revelation 17 and 15. Just do that. And it says this: And he saith unto me, this is Revelation 17 and 15. And he saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the horse sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. All right. So when you go back to this thing, these four nations, these four beasts, these four kings came up from a multitude of other nations. You know what I'm saying? Not that they came from these nations, but that out of the nations on the earth, four great kingdoms ruled. All right. Because the way that they explain waters in the scriptures, waters is used as has many different similitudes to it. All right, tell you the waters, the living waters, just as many um symbolisms that can come up from using simple words like water, or whatsoever. All right, but let's keep going. Day of 7. So I get all right, and 1. Actually, so I get what the hell. All right. All right, so here we go. Verse 3. We'll read verse 3 again. And 4 great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. All right. So these 4 beasts are 4 different kingdoms that are diverse from another. None of them are the same. All right. Now this is the first beast. Let's listen to what this first beast is. All right. So Daniel 7:4. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. So the first beast is likened unto a lion with eagle's wings. All right. Now the thing about this, about Daniel, the book of Daniel, is that it's very specific on 4 different kingdoms that are going to rule on the face of the earth. Now, if you watch my Daniel 2 breakdown, these 4 kingdoms were the Neo-Babylonian Empire, which was conquered by the Medo-Persian Empire. So the Persians are 2. Then they were conquered by the Greek Empire, by the Grecians, Alexander the Greek. That's 3. And then they were conquered by the Romans. So these are the 4 known kingdoms in Daniel that they explain and break down. All right. Whether it's Daniel 2, Daniel 7, Daniel 8, Daniel 9, Daniel 10, Daniel 11. These are just the same kingdoms throughout all of them. All right. So it says that this beast, or this beast was like unto a lion and had eagle's wings. All right. So I'm gonna grab you a couple precepts on that. So let's go to Jeremiah chapter 4. Because, you know, this ain't the only time you hear about this beast throughout the scriptures. So okay, Jeremiah 4 and all right. All right, here we go. Now this right here is a prophecy going into the Babylon coming to take and destroy Judah and take and destroy Jerusalem. All right, so this is Jeremiah 4 and 6. It says this: set up the standards towards Zion, retire, stay not, for I will bring evil from the north and a great destruction. So this great destruction is talking about the Neo-Babylonian Empire. All right. Verse 7. The lion is come up from his thicket, and the destroyer of the Gentiles is on his way. So the lion that's coming up from his thicket is the Babylonian Empire. That's why it's likened unto a lion. All right. He is gone forth from his place, to make thy land desolate, and thy city shall be laid waste without an inhabitant. That's because when he then took over all of it. All right. Now you can also read about this account in Second Kings 24. So this is so right here it's saying that he's gonna come and take out all the inhabitants. He's gonna lay the city waste. All right. Now it's also written in Jeremiah as well, but I'll grab it from Second Kings 24, if I'm not mistaken, and 15. All right. Okay. I'll start at verse 4. Um, I'll start at verse 14. It says this: and he carried away all. This is Second Kings 24:14. And he carried away all Jerusalem, and all the princes, and all the mighty men of valor, even 10,000 captives, and all the craftsmen and smiths. None remained, save the poorest sort of the people of the land. So when Nebuchadnezzar came, he took the poorest people in the land. All right, let's keep going. Verse 14, and it says this: Verse 15, it says this. And he carried away Jehoiachin to Babylon, and the king's mother and the king's wives and his officers and the mighty of the land. Those carried he into captivity from Jerusalem to Babylon. So when he took all these people into Babylon, and there was nobody in the land save the poor people. All right. I'll just keep going to uh verse 16. And all the men of might, even 7,000, and craftsmen and smiths 1,000, all that were strong and apt for war, even them to the king of Babylon brought captive to Babylon. All right. So this is them. This is talking about them being brought into Babylon. That's the lion. So that's what he's prophesying about. Them being taken into the land of the captivity. The lion in this thicket, that's talking about the Babylonians, the Neo-Babylonian Empire. All right. So it also says that this beast has eagle's wings. So I didn't forget about that. Let's go to Ezekiel chapter 17. And we can start from the top. Slakia. It's 12. 17 from the top. And it says this. And everything's gonna explain itself. This is Ezekiel 17:1. And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, put forth a riddle and speak a parable unto the house of Israel, talking to the house of Israel, right? In verse 3, and it says this, and say, Thus saith the Lord God, a great eagle, it's a great eagle with great wings, long winged, full of feathers, which had diverse colors, came unto Lebanon. Now, Lebanon is known as the land of Israel because of its beauty. All right. And it took the highest branch of the cedar, meaning the chief house. It took the highest branch of the cedar, which is, the cedar is the children of Israel, and the highest branch would be the Jews. All right. And it took the highest branch, chiefly the seed of David, which is which was the king at the time, which is Jehoiachin or Jehoiakim. So he took the highest branch, which is the king. I just read to you in that account that that was going to happen. All right. Verse 4. All right. So when the Babylonian empire came, they took all of our rich men, all of our chief men, and brought them into captivity, but they left the poor. So when it says they took the highest branch, they took the richest, and chiefly the king. All right. Verse 4, and it says this, he cropped off the top of his young twigs and carried it into a land of traffic. Now, the land of traffic isn't like a traffic jam when you're during rush hour and all these things, or where you're caught in traffic, late for work and stuff. No, traffic like slave traffic, so trafficking, auctions, being sold, things like that. All right. He set it in a city of merchants. So they were brought into a city of merchants. I mean, they were brought into captivity. All right. So let's jump down to verse 17. Slack verse 12. All right. And it says this. And it says this, verse 12. This is Ezekiel 17 to 12. And it says this. Say now to the rebellious house, know ye not what these things mean? Tell them, behold, the king of Babylon is come to Jerusalem. All right. So the king of Babylon is going to visit Jerusalem. This is talking about him. This is the lion and the eagle, the lion with eagle's wings. All right. And hath taken the king thereof and princes thereof and led them away into captivity. The chief branch. That's the same thing it's talking about. All right. So just a few precepts to how you can tell in Daniel 7 what the first beast is. And there's more to go. All right. All right. So what else does it say? Okay, so the first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. So what is this talking about? A man's heart was given to it. All right. What is this going into? This is going into Nebuchadnezzar and who Nebuchadnezzar is. All right. And I'm or into what happened to him, pretty much. All right. Going into a man's heart was given to him. Well, if you go to the account with Nebuchadnezzar, he was turned into a beast. All right. So this is Daniel chapter 4 and verse 30. All right. Okay. So we're going to read from verse 30 to 34. All right. And it says, um, the king spake and said, is not this great Babylon that I have built for the house of the kingdom by the might of my power and for the honor of my majesty? Verse 31. While the word was in the king's mouth, there fell a voice from heaven saying, O King Nebuchadnezzar, to thee it is spoken. The kingdom is departed from thee. So his kingdom fell from him, right? Verse 32. And they shall drive thee from men, and thy dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field. All right. Slocky, let me keep reading. Thy dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field. They shall make thee to eat grass as oxen, and 7 times shall pass over thee, until thou know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will. So the Lord gave Nebuchadnezzar over to pretty much being a beast. He gave him over to being a beast. And if you actually go into what happened, uh, he was given something called lycanthropy, if I'm not mistaken, which I guess makes him act like a werewolf or a wolf. You know, but let's keep reading. Hold up. The same hour was the king was the thing fulfilled upon Nebuchadnezzar, and he was driven from men, and did eat grass as oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven, till his hairs were grown like eagle's feathers, and his nails like bird claws. So this is all parabolic for Nebuchadnezzar, uh given over or given over a heart of man, if I'm reading that wrong. Salakia. Verse 34. And at the end of his days, at the end of the days, I Nebuchadnezzar lift up my eyes unto heaven, and mine understanding returned unto me. And I blessed the Most High, and I praised and honored him that liveth forever, whose dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom is from generation to generation. So a man's heart was given unto him. All right. Now, when it says a man's heart is going into him being given over to being like a beast, because Ecclesiastes, it tells you, Slakia. All right, yeah, Ecclesiastes 3. It tells you that man is beast. So Ecclesiastes chapter 3 and 18, it says this: I said in my heart concerning the estate of the sons of men, that God might manifest them, and that they might see that they themselves are beasts. So in this context, in this context, Nebuchadnezzar saw that he was a beast, and the Lord made it manifest to him to understand, to see that he himself is a beast. He gave him over to he gave him over to being a beast. All right. And the Lord can do that to anybody. All right. So that's because Nebuchadnezzar was a very proud, he was very proud individual. But let's go to Daniel. Let's go back to Daniel 7. All right. So we can go back and read that again. It says this. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. Meaning of beast, a beast's heart. So he was turned into a beast. The Lord turned him into a beast. All right. Now also when you go into the ancient Babylonian customs and their belief systems, if you ever heard of a griffin, that's this was something that was highly favored in ancient culture, in Mesopotamian culture and or history. It's like it. Um, I have a picture pulled up, but these are the things that you would see in ancient Babylon and the Neo-Babylonian Empire. So this is a lion with eagle's wings. This is what you would call a griffin. It's like it. So yeah, this is what you would call a lion with eagle's wings, and this is all over. This is all over the wall. These are sculptures that you would find, the different archaeology that you would see, the Babylonian griffin. So the scriptures, they help explain, obviously through precept upon precept, but also throughout history. If you're a historian in this thing, you can find and you can see these ancient sculptures in archaeology and find out who this is talking about. You know, so these are just many different beasts, or a lion with eagle's wings. All right. So let's keep going. Let's go to the next beast. But the first beast is the Neo-Babylonian Empire. All right. And the next beast actually conquered the first beast. This is the same thing. Each nation conquered each other, but each nation before it was the strongest empire at that time. All right. Verse 5. It says this. And behold, another beast, a second like to a bear, and it raised up itself on one side. Now, this second beast, they said this second beast raised itself up on one side. All right. Now, when it says that, this is going into, it being the Media Persian Empire, and it was chiefly the Median Empire, the Empire of the Medes, but the Persians came and took over, but the Persians were much stronger than the Medes, and the Medes waxed exceedingly weak. But it was still the Medo-Persian Empire. Later you would just call it the Persian Empire. All right. So actually, this is the same thing. This is when I tell you that these are all throughout the book of Daniel. This is also explained in Daniel 8. All right. So let's just get this real quick. This should be very quick. It says this. Then I lifted up mine eyes. This is Daniel 8 and 3, Slakia. It says this. Then I lifted up mine eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram which had two horns, and the two horns were high. But look at what it says next. But one was higher than the other. So one horn was higher than the other. I wonder what that means. You know what I'm saying? And the higher one came up last. So the higher horn came up last from the first horn. All right. Now let's go down to verse 21, verse 20, and see who this ram is. Verse 20 says, Daniel 8 and 20 says this: The ram which thou sawest having two horns are the kings of Media and Persia. So these two horns, this ram is the Persian Mede Empire, and the horn that came up last is the Persians. The first one is the Medes. All right. So let's go to this real quick. Hold up. Yeah, I also want to go into how they, them destroying uh, or defeating the Babylonian Empire. All right. Yeah. All right. So this is history.com. It says this: the fall of Babylon. The Neo-Babylonian Empire, like the earlier Babylonia, was short-lived. In 539 BC, less than a century after its founding, the legendary Persian king Cyrus the Great conquered Babylon. The fall of Babylon was complete when the empire came under Persian control. So the Persians, they conquered the Babylonian Empire. And look at what it says about the Persian Empire. It says this. Okay. This might be all I need. In the hills of what is known today as Iran, a group of shepherds were united by an aggressive leader named Cyrus. They were called Persians. At first, they were controlled by the Medes, who had helped Nebuchadnezzar overthrow the Assyrians. Then the Persians became a dominant force and the Medo Persian Empire was established. All right? So the Persians became a force. But it tells you that at first, it was controlled by the Medes, who had helped Nebuchadnezzar overthrow the Assyrians. So the first horn is the Medes. All right? But then it tells you who comes next. Then the Persians became a dominant force and the Medo Persian Empire was established. Now, look, it calls it the Medo Persian Empire. That's what it was called, the Medo Persian, because the Medes were first, were the strongest, and then the Persians became strong. All right? And this was established. By the time the ruling house of Darius the First began, the Medes had lost their importance. So the Medes, they fell off. And what when that horn became smaller, and then the last horn became the last horn came up. All right, the king became known as the Persian Empire, a power that would later dominate Mesopotamia and threaten the Greeks. The first horn is the Medes. The second horn is the Persians. The first one that came up are the Medes. The second was the Persians. The Persians were stronger than the Medes and waxed very strong. That's why you call it the Persian Empire. It's not hard to understand, you know. Um, but Lord willing, this is y'all understand what I'm saying right now. All right. So again, yeah, that Daniel 8, the breakdown Daniel 8 goes into uh the Greeks defeating the Greeks defeating the Persians, the Medo-Persian Empire, and a lot of other things. Like I'm gonna do a breakdown on that maybe next. I don't know. All right, so yeah, verse 5. And behold, another beast, a second like to a bear, and it raised up itself on one side, and it had three ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it. So the Persians, they had what are these three ribs that were found in the mouth of the teeth of this beast? Let's find out. Let's go to Medo Persian. Let's go to Medo Persian history, if I'm not mistaken. Who they conquered. All right. So let's read right here. Cyrus the Great. The Persian Empire started as a collection of semi-nomadic tribes who raised sheep, goats, and cattle in the Iranian plateau. All right. Cyrus the Great, the leader of one such tribe, began to defeat nearby kingdoms including Media, Lydia, and Babylon. Joining them under one rule, he found the First Persian Empire, also known as the Achaemenid Empire, in 550 BC. So there was three kingdoms that he ruled, but you don't really include the Media because Media is actually a part of the Persian Empire. So that's why they call it the Medio Persian Empire. All right. So it says Lydia and Babylon, but there's another um empire or kingdom that they took over, and that's actually shown right here in Ducksters.com. All right. So okay. All right. So this should be it. Slakia. All right. Yeah. Yeah. And it says it's the Persians invade. And it says this in 525 BC, the Persian Empire, led by King Cambyses, invaded Egypt. They soundly defeated the Egyptian army at the Battle of Pelusium and took control of Egypt. We can go down a little further. Egypt under Persia. When the Persian Empire conquered Egypt, it was the largest empire in the world. So at this time, that became the largest empire in the world. Egypt then became a satrapy, like a province of the Persian Empire. The leaders of the satrapy became known as the 27th dynasty. Persia ruled over Egypt for 100 years. So again, um, Persia. These are the three nations: Lydia, Babylon, and in Egypt, because it tells you that the two horns, if I'm not mistaken, were oh no, it being lifted up on one side, meaning one side was stronger than the other, as it says. So it can't be Media. All right, as it says, it raised itself on one side, meaning the Persians were stronger than the Medes. All right, and then the three ribs represent Babylon, Lydia, and Egypt that were in the mouth between the teeth thereof. All right, and they said thus unto it, arise, devour much flesh, and that's what they did. They were a very strong nation. All right, and actually, it also goes Slakia, and it next chapter, Daniel 8, yeah, and it also goes into it when it describes it in Daniel 8. So yeah, this is Daniel 8 and 4, and it says this: I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward, so that no beast might stand before him. Neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand, but he did according to his will and became great. So when it tells you that this beast was like a bear, man. This beast was unstoppable. All right. And that's pretty much how that goes, you know what I'm saying? So so the Persian Medes, they were a very strong kingdom. All right. So verse 6. All right. So let's read verse 6. It says this. Slakia. After this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. All right. So this next one was like a leopard, and this leopard had 4 wings like a fowl. But first, let's go into why it was called a leopard. All right. Because this leopard, this is not obviously. I'm gonna let you know this leopard is the Greeks, and Alexander the Greek, which started off the Hellenization period, but this is the Greeks. All right. And when it says it was likened unto a leopard, meaning it was very quick, as if it pounced on you. It ruled very quick. It was a very quick rulership. All right. And again, in Daniel 8, which I'm telling you, these these chapters, man, they explain themselves very well. All right. So verse 5, and it says this. This is Daniel 8 and 5. And as I was considering, behold, an he-goat came fro the west, came from the west on the face of the earth, and touched not the ground. Meaning this next one, man, this next beast, man, he didn't even touch the ground. Meaning he came with, he was just very, very fast. Meaning he conquered quick, very quick. If you know anything about Alexander the Freak, man, he was very young. when he ruled. All right, touch not the ground, and the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. Now I can just run down to verse 21, and it'll tell you who this is. Verse 21. This is Daniel 8 and 21. It says this: and the rough goat is the king of Grecia, and the great horn that is between his head is the between his eyes is the first king. So this notable horn is the first king, which is Alexander the Free. And again, I'm going to prove that who the first ruler is. So this Bible is a book on history, man. Salakia. Oh, I'm tripping. All right, yeah. So Daniel 1. First Maccabees 1 and 1. Again, this is going to say the same thing. All right. Same thing that Daniel 8 prophesies. All right. And it happened after that Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Chittim, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes. Prophecy fulfilled. Daniel 8 prophecy was fulfilled right here. All right. Not the full prophecy, but it destroying the Persians and Medes. Darius, king of Persians and Medes, and he reigned in his stead the first over Greece. So it just tells you that Alexander the Free reigned in his stead the first. He was the first ruler of Greece. So he is that notable horn. All right. This is talking about the um the uh, the Macedonians and the Greeks. All right, verse 2. And this just goes into um who he is. All right. So this is First Maccabees 2. First Maccabees chapter 1 verse 2. It says this. Um and made many wars and won many strongholds and slew the kings of the earth. So it tells you that he Slack it. It tells you that he touched not the ground, meaning he ruled very quickly. All right. And it says this, and won many strongholds and slew the kings of the earth and went through the ends of the earth and took spoils of many nations, insomuch that the earth was quiet before him. Whereupon he was exalted and his heart was lifted up. All right. And then Alexander only reigned 12 years, man. So he ruled for a very short period of time, but did so much damage in that short period of time. So people really, um, you know, the wicked, he saw that they really praise him for that. All right. So it tells you that, they did all this very quickly, but this is talking about Alexander the Free. All right. So this is back to Daniel 7. All right. Daniel 7. And we're just going to keep reading. All right. After this, I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given unto it. So this beast had 4 wings, like a fowl. Now, I'm gonna explain what this 4 wings is after I explain what the 4 heads are. All right. So the 4 beasts had also 4 heads, and dominion was given unto it. Meaning dominion was given unto the 4 heads. By what? By the beast. Or by the first, right? So the beast had 4 heads and dominion was given unto it. All right, so let's Slovakia. Again, this is just going into the Greeks defeating Persia. Um, but yeah, I don't really need this up right now. I kind of explained that in the last one. Uh, and now we're going to the Diadici, which is Alexander's 4 great generals, which were given dominion. All right. I think it might be on this one actually. Got you. Perfect. Right here. All right. So this is Alexander's death. All right. So upon his recovery from Hephaestion's death, Alexander returned to Babylon in 323 BC with plans of expanding his empire, but he would never realize them. He died at Babylon at the age of 32, and he reigned for 12 years. So he was young, all right, at the age of 32 on 10 or 11 June, on June 10th or 11th at 323 BC. After suffering 10 days of high fever. Theories concerning his cause of death have ranged from poisoning to malaria to meningitis to bacterial infection from drinking contaminated water, among others. Uh, Plut- Plutarch says that 14 days before his death, Alexander entertained his feet, his fleet admirable Nearchus and his friend Medius of Larissa, with a long bout of drinking, after which he fell into a fever from which he never recovered. All right, so all praises. And now we can go into this, and this should explain everything. When he was asked who should succeed him, Alexander said the strongest. All right, which answer led to his empire being divided between four of his generals. All right, so so power was given to four of his generals. So these are the four heads that was given dominion. So let's read that again. All right. The beasts had four heads, and dominion was given unto it. So the dominion was given unto the four heads. All right, so let's go back to this. All right. Which answer led to his empire being divided between four of his generals. So his empire was divided between four generals. All right, now who were the four generals? Cassander, Ptolemy, Antigonus, and Seleucus, known as the Diadochi, or the successors, because they took pretty much the rulership, or dominion was given unto them. All right, so so when they ruled, they dominion was given into these four generals. All right, but let's go back to the four wings of a fowl. So when it goes to the four wings of the fowl, it goes into um you know the winds of heaven that they took over. So not literal heaven, but the land that they conquered, or land that, well, not the land that they were given. The four major provinces that these men ruled, Slovakia. So this is where they ruled. Um, so Seleucus, if I'm not mistaken, Seleucus was given Iran and India and all this land. Ptolemy was given Egypt, Africa. Um, Antigonus was given. Is that Slovakia? I might be wrong, but that looks like, was that Rome? Maybe I might be wrong, but they were given for the four reigns of heaven. They became rulers in of four different provinces. All right, and more photos explain it. And really and chiefly, this was the Hellenization period. This is where they came out and ruled. So yeah. All right. So again, the provinces that they ruled. So this is the Hellenistic world, because they Hellenized this place, man. Where they took over all this land. All right. And they ruled, and they ruled the earth for a while. And evils were multiplied, pursuing the first Maccabees 1 and 10, maybe 10. But yeah, so these four wings spread throughout the earth and ruled four different provinces. All right. And the beast also had four heads, and dominion was given unto the beast. All right. So let's go to this next one. All right. And after this, I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly. And it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces and stampled the residue with the feet of it. and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Now, this is going into the Roman Empire because, like I told you, each nation was conquered by the other nation. You had the Babylonian Empire; they were conquered by the Persian and Medo-Persian Empire. They were conquered by the Greeks, and they were conquered by the Romans. All right, so let's just because they had many wars. Macedonia War, they had like four. So Rome conquered Greece. All right, and I'll just read it right here. Very quick, very simple. You can look this up anywhere. How did Rome conquer Greece? This is how. The Roman era of Greek history began with the Corinthian defeat in the Battle of Corinth in 146 BC. However, before the Achaean War, the Roman Republic had been steadily gaining control of mainland Greece by defeating the kingdom of Macedon in a series of conflicts known as the Macedonian Wars. So the Romans defeated the Grecians, the Greeks, the Greek freaks. So let me just grab another precept because this is a very, very strong empire. Where do I want to go? I'll go to First Maccabees 8, 8 or 9. Okay, here we go. This is First Maccabees 8:1. It says this. Now Judas had heard of the fame of the Romans, that they were mighty and valiant men, in such as would lovingly accept all that joined themselves unto them, and make a league of amity with all that came unto them. All right. Now listen to what it says about them. And that they were men of great valor. It was told him also of their wars and noble acts which they had done amongst the Galatians, and how they had conquered them and brought them under tribute. Now the Galatians, that's Gaul. That's talking about when they conquered France. So France is actually one of the 10 horns that it's talking about, but that's the next part. All right, in verse 3, and what they had done in the country of Spain for the winning of the mines of the silver and gold which is there. So this is a very, very strong people. This is a very strong nation at this time. You know, they still, man, they're still not down yet, man. They've been ruling ever since. Not the actual old Roman Empire, but through the rebirth of the Roman Empire, talking about the pursuit to the Renaissance, and America being Rome all over again. All right, so yeah, where else do I want to grab it from? Yeah, Khan. Let's go into this real quick. The rise of Rome. Let's uh let's read this. This is the rise of Rome. The major stream of civilization moved from the Middle East toward Western Europe in the area known as Italy. The Roman civilization developed. These people played a major role in the world events for more than 1,000 years. Roman leaders imposed one system of government upon the people, establishing first a republic and then an empire. The features that made Rome a great power, however, were developing long before it became an empire. Like the Greeks, the Romans were just ruled by a king. They became a republic in 509 BC and an empire in 31 BC. So the Roman Empire, they've just been creating and becoming stronger and stronger throughout all those years. All right. So this is a very strong, exceedingly strong nation. Because Rome was an extremely strong nation, man. Yeah, so that's pretty much that. But let's go back to Daniel 7. All right, this may just be it. All right, now I'm gonna read this again. Oh yeah, I'll just read this part right here. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Now these 10 horns that was given to the beast, these are the same 10 horns that are written in Revelations. All right, so the beast with 7 heads and 10 horns, that's the same beast. It's the same thing. And these 7 horns, I mean these 10 horns. All right, this goes into the European Union and NATO, which are the I'll just look it up. I'll just type it up. European Union. All right. Now, the European Union is filled with a lot of countries. All right. Now, it chiefly started with 10. So, when it goes into the Roman Empire with 10 horns, it chiefly had 10. But even before that, it had 7 of them, of 7 strong powerhouse uh, countries or kingdoms within this whole Roman Empire. Because if you look up what the Renaissance is, oh, I think I smart. There we go, Renaissance. Go into the Renaissance. So when it goes to when you go into the word Renaissance, the word Renaissance means in the French it means rebirth. It refers to a period in European civilization that was marked by a revival of classical learning and wisdom. That's talking about the rebirth of the Roman Empire. That's what it's going into. All right. Rebirth. It may pop up, it may not. Rome. Okay, yeah. So Renaissance is a French word meaning rebirth. The period is called by this name because at the time people started taking an interest in learning of the ancient times, in particular the learning of ancient Greece and Rome. The Renaissance was seen as a rebirth of that learning. So the Renaissance was really just another, like, if you want to be real, the Renaissance is really just a vast colonization of the world again. All right, and that's what goes into the what makes the EU and NATO. These nations are literally a rebirth of the Roman Empire. All right. So if you go to Revelations, it tells you that the beast that was fell by the sword, that still lived, that's talking about the Roman Empire, because it fell and then it came back through the rebirth of it. So we're not gonna get that right now. I'm gonna get that in the next video. But Lord willing, this was an edifying video. First and foremost, again, I would like to call halal, which means to give all praise to Yahweh, who the world ignorantly calls God, by Hashem, which means in the name of the Son, Yahweh Shai, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. With that being said, I'd like to bid you a strong shalom, Kwam Yasharallah, shalom.